Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It is a gloomy, cloudy, drizzly Tuesday afternoon here in suburban Chicago. It is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, which for you out of American, I'm sure it's quite possible that people who aren't in America have even heard of the American Thanksgiving holiday. But essentially, it's from the positive angle, it is a time to celebrate family and things you're thankful for. Ostensibly, it stems from a terrible myth about a terrible myth suggesting that the colonial occupiers coming over from Europe were on friendly terms with Native Americans, and that was the foundation of America, as opposed to cruel betrayal a few years later. If you want to read something interesting about that, Nathaniel Philbrook's book Mayflower does a really good job of exploring the ways that even the first European settlers were remarkably terrible to the indigenous people they encountered. But that's not really what my podcast is about today. Instead, I'm talking about games I've played recently. That's right, it's time for another Board Game Espresso episode. It's a Board Game Espresso triple shot. As a reminder, the Board Game Espresso triple shot is a quick review segment in which I review 3 games I've played for the first time recently, or maybe first and second time, and then 1 game that I dusted off recently. And so let's just jump into it. Today I'm going to talk about Cat in the Box. Cat in the Box is a 2022 release from Bezier Games in the United States. The designer is Muneyuki Yokouchi, and the artist is Osamu Iui. Cat in the Box is it is a trick-taking game in which players are trying to, you bid how many tricks you think you're going to take during the game. I think you can bid up to 3. And then you, over the course of the hand of up to, I think, 9 cards or maybe 10, you try to take exactly as many cards as you bid, or tricks as you bid. The scoring is relatively simple. You get points if you make your bid exactly, and I think you lose points if you don't make your bid. I think that's it. It's already been a couple weeks, so I don't remember the scoring exactly, but it's partly because the scoring is not the really interesting part of Cat in the Box. Cat in the Box is loosely framed around the idea of Schrodinger's cat, which is a thought experiment about quantum physics. And essentially the idea is there are some things that until you examine them exist in a quantum state, meaning they exist both one way or the other. The narrative of the Schrodinger's cat is if you have a cat in a box with some poison, and the box is sealed and you have no way of observing it, you don't know whether the cat is alive or dead until you observe the cat. And that is what's happening with Schrodinger's, or with Cat in the Box. It is a trick-taking game where you have a bunch of cards that have numbers on them, but no suits. There are 4 suits in the game of 4 different colors. One of the suits, red, I believe, is always trump. The other 3 are different colors. On your turn, it's a trick-taking game, so somebody will lead, and then everyone else will follow. And the interesting thing is you have a bunch of cubes that belong to you, and there's a little board showing all the different cards and suits that they could belong to. When you play a card, you put one of your cubes on the number box associated with the suit that you are asserting your card belongs to. For example, let's say as the first player, I play a 9, which is the highest card in the suit, and I put a token on the yellow number line at the 9. That means I'm saying this is a yellow 9. Now, any other 9 that anyone else has cannot be yellow because the yellow 9 has already been played. That means anyone else who wants to play, if they follow suit, they have to pick another number and put their cube on that in the yellow line. If they don't want to follow suit, they can assert, I don't have any yellows, and then play a card in a different color. Now here's the trick. Once they assert they don't have any yellows, they also have to put a cube on their yellow zone and indicate, like, I don't have any yellow anymore this hand, which means later on they can't play any more yellow. As the game goes along, you either finish out the whole trick, or what happens more often is that somebody will cause a paradox, and you get a paradox if you get to a point where you can't play any cards because all of your cards are already taken by other cards on the number line. It's a fascinating game, really interesting, and I thought pretty fun. I really enjoyed playing it. I love the idea of it. The biggest challenge for me would be, I think it is not a game for people who don't understand trick-taking games. Like, it is definitely a gamer's game insofar as I wouldn't want to play it with somebody who doesn't already know how to play trick-taking games. If there were somebody who didn't already know how to play trick-taking games, I would want to play something else with them first. Hearts or spades or something, just to help them get the feel for how this kind of game works before you are asking them to hold in their head multiple sets of information. It's not a tremendously long game. I think it took us like 45 minutes to an hour to play. It goes a certain number of hands. I think it's one hand led by each, or dealt by each player in the game. So in a 5 or 6 player game, you would play 5 or 6 hands. And you get points, like I said, if you make your bid, and you lose points if you cause a paradox. And I think you don't get any points if you don't make your bid. Okay. On to the next one. The next game I played is Welcome to the Moon. Welcome to the Moon is a 2021 release from Alexis Allard and Benoit Turpin. Benoit Turpin is the designer of the original Welcome to Your Perfect Home, or just Welcome to, and art by Anne Hasdeck, published by Blue Cocker Games in 2021. Welcome to the Moon is a newer version or a newer iteration on the idea of Welcome to, which at its core is you have 3 choices of pairs of things to do, both a card and an action, and you have a writing erasable or writing style grid on which you're marking those different actions. Each turn you are choosing from one of those pairs and marking things on your board, and your goal is to do the best on a variety of different scoring objectives and different ways of interacting with the board based on the choices you make. Now, that description I just gave you could describe Welcome to or any of its alternate boards. I think it could describe Welcome to Las Vegas, although I haven't played that one, and it could describe Welcome to the Moon as well. The big difference with Welcome to the Moon is that Welcome to the Moon actually comes with 8 alternate boards, whereas the original Welcome to game just comes with the 1. And more importantly, the 8 alternate boards that Welcome to comes with are pretty dramatically different from game to game. Whereas the alternate boards that they released for Welcome to add like 1 mechanism per game. They'll add 1 extra thing to think about or 1 extra thing to do. The extra boards in Welcome to are fully a different arrangement and a different set of rules. So the idea in Welcome to the Moon is that it tells the story of the human colonization of the moon. The players start as colonists going up and landing on the moon, and then you start colonizing the moon, and then you're building infrastructure on the moon, and so on and so on. I don't really know what all 8 are. It is a sort of campaign, although you can play any of the games out of order. It doesn't demand that you carry one game to the next. I thought Welcome to the Moon was fun. My understanding is that all 8 games are really good and that the progression from them is really good as well. I think if I didn't already have Welcome to, I would be pretty enthusiastic about picking up Welcome to the Moon. That said, Welcome to went through its arc in our family playtime. We played a lot of it when we first got it. Now it's a once every few months kind of game. And I don't know that I need more Welcome to in my collection. I think I'm happy with I have the regular game and I have several of the expansion maps. So we have more Welcome to than we'll ever play. And I think that's probably good for me. I don't know that I need to head to the moon. Although I think it's pretty, the one mission we played, I think was mission number 3, was pretty good. And I can see why you would want to. So if you haven't played Welcome to at all, I would recommend Welcome to. You can play it on Board Game Arena. But if you really like Welcome to and you want to try the more sort of gamerly version, Welcome to the Moon is a good one to try. All right, on to our dusted off game. As a reminder, a game gets dusty when it goes a year or more without having been played. This game is actually 4 years dusty. That means it's been 4 years since I played it. We busted it out at a game night with our neighbors. As I was getting ready to bring some games over to our neighbor's house, he texted me and he said, "Hey, I'd really like you to bring games that have more interaction, games where the stuff that I do interferes with the stuff you do, and so on." And I said, "Very well, challenge accepted." So I picked out several games that meet that criteria. The standout of the evening was Santo Domingo. Santo Domingo is a 2017 release from Stefan Risthaus, and with art by Clemens Franz, and it was released by Pegasus Spiel. I'm not sure if it got a release in the US, and if it did, from whom. This is a game where I heard a review of it, I think maybe on the Shut Up and Sit Down podcast, although I can't guarantee that that's the case. And the discussion of it was so intriguing to me that I went online to look at Amazon.de Germany to see what it was, and it wasn't really that expensive. It was maybe $15 or $18 and then another $8 shipping to get it shipped over from Germany, which seemed sort of reasonable at the time, and it was frankly a really good buy. Santo Domingo is an excellent game, and I'm really happy to have it. I will put a link in the show notes to my original review of the game, because I think that, I should have reviewed it on the podcast, or mentioned it at least, 2017 being within the last 5 years. So the podcast was going when I got this game. Anyway, in the game, I would say the one big downside to the game for me is the theme. In the theme, you are miscellaneous European merchants trading goods in the Caribbean. There's no reason for it to have that theme. It literally is almost themeless. It could be literally just anywhere else. The game Santo Domingo is an empty signifier. If you haven't played these games, Puerto Rico, Santo Domingo, San Juan, they all just sort of signify European game about merchants set in the Caribbean somewhat distastefully. So I'm sort of sad that Santo Domingo didn't aspire to just picking a theme that was just as interesting, but maybe not so insensitive. Anyway. That aside, because it's almost themeless, in the game you have 9 cards. And in those 9 cards, you have 2 cards that get you goods, 2 cards that get you points, 1 card that gets you points if other players are getting goods, 1 card that gets you goods if other players are getting points, 1 card that lets you trade goods for points, 1 card that gets you points if other people are trading good for points, and 1 card that lets you get all your cards back. Essentially, it is a game of psychology. You are trying to anticipate what cards your opponents will play and when, and in so doing, you're going to get the bulk of the points or goods that are available that round for yourself. Each round, you pick a card, you play it, you resolve it in order, and then you pick your next card. As you play your cards, you have fewer and fewer choices until you play the I'm going to pick up all my cards card, which gives you a benefit if you play most of your cards first. It doesn't mean it's never a good idea to pick your cards back up, but it's a kind of a lost turn if you do it too soon. And then the idea is the first person gets to 30 points wins, and then you play again. And I will say, in my experience, you can usually tell 2 or 3 turns out who's going to win, because often somebody gets an early lead or gets lucky where everybody plays for points and they play for goods, so they get this huge pile of goods. And often there's little you can do to catch up with them, because that's just kind of the flow of the game. It's not to say you can't, but it's very rare that I've found if somebody's more than like 5 points ahead, it's pretty hard to catch up to them, depending. But we played 2 rounds of that game, and my wife won 1 and I won 1, which maybe speaks a little bit to the experience. We both played the game before. The other 2 players had never played it before, and they did not do as well. But they still had fun. They said they liked it. And I will say, it holds up. Theme aside, Santo Domingo is a great game. And it's an excellent little filler. It takes about 20 minutes to play. Really interesting decisions throughout. Great mind bluff game where you're trying to say, like, can I anticipate what you're going to do? And you should check it out if you get a chance. That's Santo Domingo. All right, the last game I want to talk about today is Point City. Point City was designed by Molly Johnson, Robert Melvin, Sean Stankovich, and the art is from Dylan Mangini. It's published by Flat Out Games. Now, Flat Out has been on a tear recently. They've had a number of really good games come out. I believe that Cascadia was one of theirs, and certainly Point Salad before from this same design team was one of theirs. Point Salad and Point City are quite clearly connected. If you see the boxes on the shelf next to them, Point City looks like a sequel to Point Salad, or they definitely look like they're in the same line. I think if you look at them both next to each other, you can't tell which is which. Except that Point Salad has a name that makes sense and Point City does not. Point City makes sense as you could say it's a sequel to Point Salad. Okay, I see where they got that. By itself, it's kind of a nonsense phrase. That said, Point City has a lot of DNA of Point Salad. It feels like a game that is very closely related to that other game. In it, you are collecting cards and you are trying to get points through a variety of different mechanisms, but mostly about building buildings, and then those buildings let you score points for other buildings. I thought Point City was interesting, and I suspect that if I encountered Point City out in the wild, unconnected to Point Salad as a game, I would think it's pretty neat, and I might even be interested in buying it. That said, it's presented as a related game to Point Salad. And what makes Point Salad so compelling is that it is pure. Point Salad is a game of simple choices, complex realities, dealing with what comes up, pushing your luck a little bit, and ultimately a very easy to understand and easy to play game. Point City tries to play that song again and doesn't quite achieve it. In part it couldn't, because they have to change it in some way, and I would point to Point Salad as pretty close to a perfect filler game, and so Point City, it's pretty hard to figure out how to do that again. They did find, like I said, a different riff on the idea, and it is an interesting game to play. I would recommend trying it if you get a chance, but if you've never played either and somebody says you want to play Point Salad or Point City, Point Salad every day and twice on Sunday. I think Point Salad is amazing, and this game just made me want to play Point Salad. So I admire what they're doing. It's a really good game, but doesn't quite get there in terms of its predecessors. So those are the 3 new games and 1 dusty game that I played recently that I want to talk to you about here. If you have some new games you've tried, I'd love to hear about them. Do you know where you can tell me? That's right, the Board Game Geek Guild 3269. I'm also keen to hear what kinds of games are you playing with the family over the holiday. Thanks for joining me on my walk today. Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let me know what games you've been trying recently. Send me a message, Wombat929 is the username there, or email me, brendan@rattleboxgames.com. Thanks for joining me, and I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.